Morning, Steve.
Good morning, sir.
Happy New Year to you
And to you.
and the family. Have a good Christmas.
Busy. Young
Busy.
family life, kids, chaos.
Yeah.
But yeah, and they're really nice to have some time off.
That's good. Yeah, that's good.
Yeah?
Yeah, it was. It was. As you know, we've had a bit of a up and down year again. We had our oldest son stayed with us for a few days, and
Nice.
that was good. Yeah,
That's
watched
what it's
a
all
movie,
about, isn't it?
drank a few glasses of wine, and all the rest of it. Yeah, and then started thinking about the new year, what we're going to do this year, what we've got planned, and
A lot of exciting new stuff in the pipeline. A lot of development stuff.
Yeah, and Luke is making us a new studio, so my walnuts,
Hopefully.
tiger nuts, Brazil nuts, or whatever don't get frozen out there.
Yeah, the last time we filmed it was a bit cold, wasn't it?
Oh, it was cold. My lord, yeah. Yeah,
we're indoors, not in the studio just yet. We're in the sort of lab, I suppose.
They needed antifreeze for your nuts. That would have been perfect. I think that would have kept everything sort of tickety boo. But no. Anyway, no. Seriously, yes, it's a bit of a strange one really, because we left last year getting excited, and now we're getting very excited because which we'll come to later. We managed to resurrect some of the old products that I was using back in the late 70s, 80s, and historically really good products. So
we mentioned it in the sort of nut video, didn't we?
Yeah.
As potential sort of standalones.
Yeah,
we're going with it now.
Yeah.
So
and I think it's good, because I think it then gives people who want to, we can talk about it later, individual products, what they can do with them, customising their own bits and pieces.
Yeah.
And I think that's, because I remember one of the reasons we were talking about this was that you still can't get over why I can get so excited about certain bait additives and one thing.
A few years later.
Yeah, why not? And I mean, there are certain elements. This is what keeps me fascinated about bait.
Yeah.
There are certain elements that are triggers, and they do work. We know this. You've only got to look at historically. I mean, I know we wax lyrical about beetling, but
yes,
I mean, I hate to think how many bottles of it you've sold, and how many people.
I wouldn't know where to begin.
No, and people keep on buying it and using it and catching fish with it, and that just shows you, that there are things that really can and do.
I think
make a
beetling has almost been with Hinders longer than I have, and that's 19 years, coming on sort of 20 years.
Yeah.
So I mean, that's it's quite a span there. Obviously for a good reason.
Well, yeah, and that's why I say, and I'm still looking and delving into things and testing stuff in the tank, as you know.
Yes.
We've got this wonderful new rapport with our own sort of specific flavour house. One of the chemists in there he's a carp angler as well, so we can talk chemistry and fishing language.
And angling.
Yeah, which is
a combination. Well, I suppose it's a sort of rare thing, isn't it?
It is,
Not everyone has that, that
We're
opportunity to sort of test, develop, and have the sort of relationship where you can relate to what you're doing as well.
Yeah, and it makes my life a lot easier, in that respect. So that's been another exciting development that we've seen processed through the seafood, and now we're going into the new nut bait.
Yes,
and I think without that sort of access and facility, it's almost though we've been able to tweak things a lot easier, rather than sort of saying, well, that'll have to do.
Yeah.
Because a lot of flavour houses, because of the size, and angling is, relatively speaking, still cottage industry in comparison to the likes of the big biscuit manufacturers, confectioners, and so on and so forth. So having that facility is great, and we've managed to procure some really, really lovely things, and that's allowed me to go back to the 70s and 80s and regenerate these things that
Where it all started?
Yeah.
Where it started for you, or started with
Well, it is.
a lot of anglers, I suppose, isn't it?
You look back and you think, well, wow.
Yeah.
I mean, and it was. I mean, I've been fishing for a long time, but in excess of 65 years now, and yeah, I mean, things have changed massively, and you've got the internet that you can access a lot of information very quickly.
Sure.
And I've been very lucky. I've travelled the world fishing. I've met some incredible people, and in the same process, there's this never-ending development that's going on in my mind about bait and things like that.
I was going to say, learned a few things over the years.
Well,
certainly developed a few things.
Yeah, and I think, but the interesting thing is that it's like a lot of the lads that I speak to that are involved with Hinders, their enthusiasm, it sparks me on, because I'm thinking they're going out.
Yeah.
It's like the new nut bait.
Yeah.
Andy Taylor phoned me up the other day and said the tweaks that we've done to it. He said it's spot on.
Yeah.
And when that comes from the likes of Andy or Ryan, who again I've worked with closely, very capable anglers, but when they say, yeah, that's better than, that little bit, going that little bit more is worth
the
it.
tweaks,
Yeah.
tweak at a time. You've
Yeah.
gone from sort of an 8, 9 to a 9 and a bit,
Yeah.
and then up towards the 10 mark, and you think it's done, it's finished now.
Yeah, well, I have. I've just literally come up. We rolled some of the new bait with the new additives.
Yeah.
These are the additives that, like I say, I was selling when I had Cotswold baits back in the 80s.
Yeah.
And we're lucky that we've got them back, particularly, well, two of them, as you know, I'm very, very excited about. And, as soon as you give it to the lads and they say, God, blimey, it's just... And, I think I was speaking to Ryan over Christmas, and he was out on the bank somewhere. And he said, I've actually shut the bag down because he said, I'm eating them, And I said, well, but that's a good sign.
Yeah,
I mean,
it's
100%. It's a confidence thing, isn't it, as well?
Yeah.
There are some baits that I wouldn't put in my mouth, but, it doesn't mean that the carp don't like them. But, yeah.
No, very true.
So, yeah, from that perspective, it's good. We've got an agenda, what we want to do this year.
Yes. And already starting to tick a lot of this off.
Yeah, it's exciting.
Yeah,
it is.
Yeah, definitely.
And hopefully the people that benefit from it will be.
Well, like you said, when we've got anglers, sort of really excited, and you're making the tweaks, and it's gone, from paper where it all sort of starts, through to the science, through to development, through to the, the factory where you're phasing everything together. And then it sort of goes back to the anglers, and then you're to-ing and fro-ing, you're making your changes, making your tweaks. It's not just on paperwork, it looks good. It's not just in the chemist, it looks good. It's like, well, actually...
The whole package.
It's catching fish, and the tweaks that, we've done over the last couple of years.
Well, the thing is, if it's not catching fish, then my role within Hinders is non-productive. It's not doing what I hope that I'm reasonably good at doing. And I get a buzz. I mean, I get a buzz from listening to people, and that I'm not a media man at all.
I would say almost against media to a certain extent, but
every now and again I'll dip into Facebook and things like that, and you see
he is contracted to do these videos. We're forcing him.
And they're going to pay me like Tom Cruise, $15 million for every appearance. Do I get a plane to fly around in as well and blow
Can
people up?
Stunt double.
Yeah,
You'll be
fine. I wish. Yeah, he hasn't got many wrinkles, that's for sure. Certainly less than I have, but probably to do with the knife under the. No, sorry, Tom. It's okay, fine. I don't want to see you in court. I don't want.
Back on track.
Yeah.
Back on track.
No, I think I get a real buzz when you see, whether it be a 6-year-old or a 60-year-old going, yeah, when I caught a PB or I caught a special fish, a looker or whatever, and you think you've helped him do it.
Played a part.
Yeah. And it is. It really, really does. I mean, I've said this in the past where I've done with other companies and being a consultant, and the shows and things like that, and people come up, and I remember a very, very well-known angler coming up to me, and he said, this particular bait, he said, "You've turned my angling around." Excellent. And to come from that, a very high-profile angler, who, he caught this particular year, it was ridiculous what he caught, absolutely stupid, and it's a buzz, it's like 3 of the people that were close to me, who we used to fish together as, it was sociably as much as anything, but it was obviously Andy, Pug, my son David, and Dean Lloyd. And I remember on one occasion in particular that we were developing this bait at the time, and we went onto it's a tricky lake, and there was one fish in particular stands out. David caught it. It was the first fish he had out of the lake. It was 47 something, and he caught it in the afternoon. The next morning he caught it again. That fish hadn't been caught for 5 years.
Oh, that's crazy.
And then but it doesn't stop there. So I remember the Neville going off. We trot around there, and he says, "Oh, I caught it yesterday." I said, "What do you mean you caught it yesterday?" He said, "It's that big Italian." And anyway, he unhooked it, slipped it back, and you think, right. A month later, we went down to the lake again, myself, Dean and Dave. We fished in 3 different swims with 1 rod each. Yeah, that's 1 rod. And the reason we only fished with 1 rod was there were 2 reasons.
Not 3 on the spot, trad lining.
No. On that particular lake, it was interesting. We found that too many lines in the dirt tight spots.
Sure.
Switched them off big time.
Yeah,
so sometimes greed is, it's not always
works against you.
Yeah, it's not always more. I remember having 6 bites on that lake, and I thought, right, of this, I'm going to put the other 2 on and it just killed it, stone dead.
Yeah.
But I remember at one point there was myself, Dave, and Dean. We were all playing 40s. And this was on a development bait, and Dean Lloyd went on. He went on to fish a real tricky lake up in Cambridgeshire, and he rinsed it. He caught more fish in the first 2 months than the whole syndicate in the year. Anyway, going back to this particular occasion where we had quite a few 40s and one thing and another. We were actually sort of banned.
And you're talking UK 40s.
Yes.
Well,
These are not dodgy. These are not dodgy fish. They've been documented anyway. So there's been photographs and one thing.
Yeah.
But then Dave, one point of this session was a 36-hour session, and it was horrendous. The weather. I remember, we were just wearing chesties and that to keep dry, and he had to. The first fish that he had of the session was this fish that he caught the last time before.
Twice.
So he caught it 3 times then.
Yeah.
And then the following morning he caught it again. He caught it 3 times in the same session. Now, and that fish then has only subsequently been, to the best of our knowledge, has only been out twice. Jed had it. In spawn at 50-something spawn you get. And as far as I know, that's it. It's still alive.
Yeah.
But that's the difference that bait can make. They want it, they'll have it, and I'll never forget that particular session. It was awesome. It was awesome because of the friends I was with.
Sure.
You've
got the social element there as well as, like you said, the development from scratch and putting it all together.
There was no selfishness. I mean, to be. I mean, and I don't profess to be a good angler at all. I mean, I've caught a few fish here and there, and I enjoy my fishing. But and to be a really good angler, you've got to be, dare I say, you've got to be selfish. I mean, I don't mean...
It's tricky at times, isn't it,
yeah.
I think?
Yeah, because, I mean, with great respect to the likes of you know, the Terriers and the Darrell Pecks, they are really, really nice gentlemen.
Yeah.
They really, really are.
Yeah.
But when they're fishing for themselves.
Yeah.
Nobody else. They might be fishing for their sponsors as well, but
sure.
they're locked in.
It's a mindset, isn't it?
Yeah.
They're focused.
That's it. Yeah. You know, they're like that maverick in that plane.
Yeah.
They have got a job to do, and they'll do it.
Yeah.
And it's finding that balance. But you know, I've been lucky. Some of the waters I've fished, and I've learned a lot. And also, you know, I remember donkeys years ago. Well, I say donkeys years ago, but it would have been about in 1986, 87. We were fishing Longfield, and there were a couple of lads on there. They were only teenagers. They were twins.
Okay.
And you didn't have this like spot, you know. And we were all sat there using good quality milk protein baits and that we caught fish. You know, I'm talking about myself, Johnny Allen, Colin Martins, people like that, all seasoned, good, you know.
Yeah.
And the twins rock up and they start spotting tiger nuts out, you know. And they had it off to a T, because you were fishing in little pockets of weed and whatever.
Sure.
And we sat there, and they rinsed Longfield, and we're all sat there thinking, nah, you know, it'll happen for us, because we've got better.
Yeah.
And it taught us a lot of lessons, in the sense of, if people are around you doing something, catching fish, and you're not, then it might not be the fact that they're not eating your bait, because I'm 100% sure.
Well, you're confident in the bait.
Yeah.
So.
But it's they were, for every time they got caught, they were probably in God knows how many tiger nuts, you know.
Yeah.
So I think, you know, you can the whole point of angling in my head is that you've just got to be adaptive and think, you know, and quite often sort of think outside the box. Yeah. And if you're not catching, yeah, there's a lot of times where you won't catch. There is things going against you, but there are a lot of times that we don't catch when we should have caught, and that's going back.
I've learned that in my own fishing, 100%, and that's from like the match perspective, you know, sort of commercials, where I've literally gone from possibly fishing a feeder to fishing, you know, 15 inches up with a bread punch and a bit of beetling or something like that. And the difference of a foot, same spot, same cast, same area where I thought they would be. Yeah. Didn't get a bite on the bottom, put it just a little bit up in front of them. Yeah. Slight change to the bait, and started catching.
I remember a local water in the park, and this is again going back quite a few years ago, and there were some right old proper ones in there, and I was floater fishing with my old mate Brian Sefton, and I saw this right old leather coming in, and it's not a big fish, but it's special in the sense of its age. It was right old, like me, you know, before you say anything, Ryan. And I said to Brian, I said, we caught a few off the top, and I said to Brian, I said, oh, I'm gonna have... And this fish was coming in, it was coming around a point, and it was dropping in this spot, and then, you know, everything went up. You couldn't see what was going on, and off it would trot. Up the bank, come around, drop down again. So when it was out, I got a bit of boilie, crumbed it up and put it out, and by hand. And this fish kept on coming around, you know. And I gently, literally, it was only rod length and a half out, so I just literally teased the bait out. I'm thinking, God, what? It's not, you know, it's on my bait. I know it's seeing it, it's eating,
it's coming down, it's feeding.
But and cleared off again, it set the silt settled down. One thing I was looking at, and I moved that rig not even 6 inches. Mm-hmm. It came around again, went down, dropped, gone.
Excellent.
You know, and it's just those. And when you're fishing at silly ranges, things like that, you're not going to see at all.
Yeah,
you know,
it becomes a lot more challenging, and like you said,
you're creating a picture in your head of what might be going on out
there. I suppose you're sort of acting on what you're seeing because it's there. You can see the little patrol route. You could see where he's going down.
That's right.
You position it from like you said 6 inches, and then that's made the difference. Yeah. So like no change in bait or rig or setup on that particular thing. Just slight change.
It's that zone, isn't it? I mean, I've wrote about it countless times, and I know other people have. But you've got this sort of area where they're quite happy, but in that area they will feed inside that area, and very, very specifically, and they might even be banging each other's heads. You know,
fighting to get down to the sort of same spot.
And it's that's I think again when I did stuff with carpology underwater with good old Rob Hughes, some of the stuff I remember we done this thing about lead core, it was and I showed David and he said that's it. He said I don't want to see any other underwater video clips because he said it fried his head. And I think one of the we did a thing on back leads, and that was I mean, Joe Wright is moving pulling the line like this, and Rob's going, nothing's happening, nothing's happening, and it was just the fulcrum point of the lead wasn't allowing anything else to go on. It's so I think a lot of the time, fishing wise as well, I think we do this anthropomorphism where we think it should be doing this, but in reality it's doing something else.
I mean, I've made that mistake, I think, with sometimes presentations or sometimes bait, where it's like, as an angler, you automatically have that mindset. You think, that's exactly what it's going to be doing. And then you put it in the edge and you think, that's not doing what it's supposed to be doing.
I know.
You think, hold on a minute.
Yeah, I mean, it's like some of the rigs that you've seen published over the years, Lord above. I mean, I don't know or how they were sort of conjured up, but no, and I think that's the big difference in it. It to me, the bait can and does and should be your edge.
Yeah.
And I know a lot of people, poo-poo it, but they've got to want to eat that. And again, I remember a case with Brian, and this again years ago. Dave and I did a bait specifically for him and a couple of his mates on a closed shop syndicate water, so I won't mention any names, it's not fair, one thing or another. And he couldn't believe it, the fact that he was getting these fish, and the guys fishing with him, they were getting these fish going over other people's baits, excuse me, and just dropping down on their patches.
Yeah.
And he didn't, he up until that point, he didn't, I'm convinced he didn't believe that bait could make such a significant difference. And when he went on to, I think it was Orchid over in Oxford or somewhere like that, I gave him an enzyme bait, which was it was a special bait. It sadly cost prohibitive to produce now, and I had to sort of guide him through the steps.
Sure.
And I remember him phoning me up. He said, I had that one, and he's fishing against a baiting team, and those fish were, looking at. So that's that, going back to what I said earlier. That's why it's been great that we're now reconstructing some of these old products that were so successful. Dare I say it, in the 70s and the 80s. My late best man, out of 30, which in 1977 in the water park was big fish,
monster,
and he caught it on one of these products that we will actually put in the nut bait.
Yeah,
and he's buzzing, which is quite rightly so. So the fact that we've managed to sort of resurrect them almost, courtesy of a lot of hard work on our part,
yes,
and you know, the Flavour House, it's been good. And we've got, you know, having that access to that is awesome, you know. And as you know, well, we've seen it historically just in seafood. I mean,
a couple of game-changing products.
Yeah, I think so. I've not.
In your opinion, obviously you've worked with a lot of raw materials and probably seen it from, you know, the basics all the way through, like you said, to the top end stuff. You know, how do you rate them? You know, where would they sort of sit on the scale?
When you get
as in, obviously, you know, they're very versatile as well.
Yeah.
You can use them in a lot of different ways. I sort of understand that. But
yeah,
if you had to pick like a powder, if you had to pick like a liquid, you know.
Some of these products. I mean, when I got the final samples through of you know, the product that we're going to, well, one of the products we're talking about, we've had to rename it because of the sort of, you know, issues, but Beetling B, which gives it a bit of away. People.
So that's like the extract, the powdered version.
You know, that's really exciting, and it's like you going back to some of the baits that we've done. I mean, you know, when you get, I mean, Gary Bays is good. I mean, you know I talk about Gary from time to time. Gary is a good friend of mine, outside of the business as well. I respect him. I've known him when he started working with the late
I think he's
Rod.
got a bit of a following.
Yeah, he's a lovely bloke. Very, very, you know, very clever. We had some real loggerhead times with when we were together in Nash Bakes, but we produced some. But when you get Gary comes up to me and the classic example was seafood, and he said you've pulled that one off, haven't you, son? You know, and you think then when you've got somebody like that who's so heavily respected in the industry, he's very, very capable angler, a lovely, lovely bloke.
That knows a thing or two about bait.
Knows a thing or two about bait. And you know, and then we talk openly about things, and you know, as I said to you the last time, it's about this concept of blending.
Sure.
You know, which in my opinion I still rate as probably going back to Hutchinson. In my mind, when it came to the progression in flavours as we know them now, the food flavour industry and the continuation, the stuff that he did was just mind-boggling. I don't know how he did it. I mean, he was incredible bait mind. You know, I've got reams and reams of letters that we exchanged to each other and banging ideas, and some of them were really mad.
Yeah.
But, you know,
I think sometimes it starts off as a mad concept, doesn't it? Or can do.
Yeah, I remember one occasion Rod loved Scotch right until his bitter end, and so did I. But I haven't touched whiskey for God knows I don't know how many years now. But I remember we meeting up with him one Friday, and then we got a few bottles of Scotch in, as you do, you know, and we sat talking about bait until Monday morning, and we didn't go to bed at all.
Crazy.
And we got up, and then we had to go back to Louth. I had to come back to town, and I remember it vividly, 1981, 82, and you're thinking, he must have been raving, but we weren't. Because we were so obsessed by it. Yeah. Obsessed probably is the right word. Yeah. But Rod his mind was absolutely incredible, you know, and the delving questions that he would ask me was immense. But his knowledge of blending, and I mean, and it wasn't just. It was it was a natural ability, but also he knew what worked. And Bays is exactly the same.
It's having the understanding as well, isn't it?
I don't know if Rod had this natural ability, and Gary's exactly the same. And you know, that's one thing that Gary's taught me very strongly. That, you know, and I totally agree. You know, that blending can be more productive or productive than a single one-off element. you know, and that's, you know, and that obviously goes hand in hand with bass mixes and things like that. But yeah, when you get somebody coming up and saying, you know, that's good, and you know, and you, like a guy went on to Raisbury this year, had some awesome fish out of there. Andy's fished at hard water in the water park, Ryan, and one thing, and so on and so forth. Craig, you know, it does. It gives you the confidence because you know that you're doing it right.
Yeah.
You know, and you think, and you should be doing it right after all these years. But
a few years practice.
You know, but and also you stumble over things.
I think you find that sometimes, obviously, when we refer to like the team guys, you know, that they've done it, they are quite experienced anglers. But you know, some of the times we don't mention that, you know, the customers coming in, you know, they're also finding the same. Yeah. You know, even if it's the guys that have just begun carp fishing, I know a few guys that have changed over in the last few years, and have said that, you know, they've had the best ever season on it. Literally, you know, just changed the thing. Yeah. They're not claiming to be an expert or anything like that. They're doing what they were doing the year before with a change of bait, and you know, the game has.
And I think there are. I mean, you know, I'm not singling out Hinders baits as being better than anybody else's, because that would be an absolutely foolish remark to make. Yeah. But there are baits that stand out within each company that are a bit more special than.
Yeah, I think
you know, you can say that. Yeah, you know. And it's not just down to the numbers game about how many people are using it and the volume. I mean, that can make a big difference. I mean, you know, there are instances I can cite historically, you know, but I think there are these bits that are just that little bit different. You know, I've told you that we found over the years these common denominators that crop up in natural products that we use, in flavours that we use. I mean, without getting too in depth in terms of the science and one thing or another, you know, the pH changes and one thing or another they can make such a substantial
There's an
difference.
awful lot of work that goes into sort of each item, you know, each core range, isn't there? Yeah. I think, you know, before I sort of joined the industry, you just overlook it, I think. You know, there's a lot of testing, and like you said, when you're talking about the, you know, the pH levels and blending of flavours, and you're just talking there liquid elements, well, you know, what about all of the raw materials and blending the raw materials, mixing them,
well, I bet you didn't think,
chopping,
you know,
and changing and all the rest of it.
You know, I mean, I quite often now will ask you or Luke or whatever, you know, just check the pH on that, make sure it's within that parameter before we mix it up. And, you know, and you I know
it makes me work. It gets the science book back out.
But you've seen the difference. You've seen the things that we've done in our little laboratory.
You start from scratch though. You've got a blank canvas, and you are every single element or individual product that's used is in there for a reason. And it's
I remember last year, in fact, I was up here and we were doing something, and you said, "Well, how do you know that'll work?" And I said, "Well, that's a good question, because I don't, but it did."
Yes.
And I think that goes back to doing, you know, you handle these products almost daily, and you know what will work. You know, there is this sort of synergy, and it's almost like, you know, you can have a jigsaw puzzle, and then you've got a couple of bits that are missing. And once you've found those little bits, put them in, the whole picture is complete. And you've got then the difference, you know? And that is, to me, that's the way I try to look at bait, is, you know, and it's not just me. I mean, there's loads of really, really exceptional anglers out there who they go to those extra efforts of making their hook baits, you know, baits related to the size of the hooks. They're doing this, that, and all the other. They will make seasonal changes if they feel are necessary.
There's small tweaks.
Yeah, and that's the difference, and that's one of the reasons why they're so good.
It's attention to detail. Yeah. And it's every aspect of fishing. You know, like I said, from the weather to the rigs to the bait to the location to how you're applying it, etc., etc.
But if you can have the best rig in the world, and I know I'm going to be, you know, I can imagine people going, wah, wah, wah. You can have the best rig in the world, the best presentation, one thing or another. But if they don't want to eat that bait, mate, just, sling it up in the trees.
Yeah.
And if people think that, I think that the majority of bait out there is good, reasonable, but it's the exceptional stuff. And that's why the exceptional stuff goes on. I think classically, I suspect that we will see that with seafood, that bait will go on and on and on and on and on. And yes. I personally, certainly one water where I know it's been used on pressurised water against a vast volume input of other bait,
sure.
It seems to be getting better and better and better, and it's producing the bigger fish.
Already, it went in development for 2 or 3 years, been on the market for sort of a couple of years now, so you're talking sort of 5 years sort of across the span.
Yeah.
And like you said, we're already seeing in the early stages of it being on the market within the 2 years, that increase. It has got that sort of long campaign feel to it, as well as that instant sort of appeal, if you like. It's.
Yeah. I mean, it can be. Excuse me. It can be very instantaneous.
Yeah.
And I proved this a couple of seasons before COVID kicked in, and I went fishing with Luke and Sarah, and we moved around the lake, and I literally got a handful of it, crammed it up, stuck it in the margins, in 20 minutes, not even 20 minutes.
Yeah.
It was like, and we went in after these people had blanked in the swim. So, it wasn't the case of, but it is that longevity of it. It does last, and and we've also managed to harness it.
Find that with the nut as well.
Seafood,
but I mean the nut is obviously almost the latest development. Obviously, I know we're developing a lot of other bits as well, but I mean that is, I suppose, in the limelight now. Obviously, it's already gone through a lot of development, a lot of tweaks, a lot of testing.
Well, I think, as I said, I'd not seen the last roll because it was just pre-Christmas.
Yes.
Andy had some. I think Ryan had some. Andy was, almost in a state of euphoria. I went down.
That's the excitement you're talking about again.
And I went down not long before we started doing this. Tasted the finished bait and tasted the original, tasted the finished bait, and the difference is magic.
Yeah.
And that's what you want. It's just that.
It's the mindset, and obviously with your sort of knowledge and understanding, where it's just changed. Loved the original, but then a couple of tweaks, and it's like, that's it.
Yeah.
This is the one.
Yeah.
So for all that trial error and development.
And the great thing is that sort of Sam and you okayed it, that some of these some of the products we're using and harnessing, one thing that will be at some stage will be sold as standalones.
Yes.
So if people want to make specials or whatever, they can, we're not going to tell them everything, but we'll give them guidelines as to how, what, when to use. But I think that's good as well. They can so yeah. All in all, I'm currently working on my new gudgeon bait. As you know, I still want to catch. I mean, old Nashi used to think it was hilarious that I wanted to catch a British record gudgeon.
I can't remember the last time I've caught a gudgeon.
Yeah, well, I always reckon. Well, gudgeon are a bit like sort of. They're miniature barbel, aren't they, really? Yeah. But imagine catching a £20 gudgeon. And I did. I got really quite enthused about. Again, I found out bits that were gudgeon specific.
Yeah.
And I fished this lake, which is stream fed, hence why the very, very big gudgeon in it. And fortunately, it seems that Mr. Otters doesn't look at gudgeon as being really high on the menu steaks, so they're escaping. Whereas, sadly, the carp are not, and it can't be otter fence this particular lake. But I would fish on this lake and it was full. It's not. It still is busy with proper old carp.
Sure.
You know, not big things, and they were a menace. You know, because I'm fishing with really light rigs.
Yeah,
you start magnet fishing, and a friend of mine, he even sharpens my 18 hooks.
Crikey.
So you know when you put a pinky
serious
on
business, this gudgeon fishing.
And don't knock it until you tried it. But again, I found there were little things that the gudgeon preferred over the carp.
Yeah.
And I know it sounds mad, but you know, I mean, a guy always says that he wants a bucket of them for his zander fishing on the 7 or something, but there's something about 3-4 ounce gudgeon, and they're beautiful, and that actually takes me back to childhood days fishing at Lechlade, on the Thames, you know, where we used to go down and you catch gudgeon, rough, daddy rough, all those sort of things, and then the chub would come along and bits and pieces like that. I mean, I can't remember the last time I caught a rough out of the Thames, which is sad, and I bet there's an awful lot of people who watch this and say, "What's she talking about? That's something that some Victorian or Elizabethan wore around their necks, or a bird even." But you can. It is. You know, we talked about the Irish scene about making ground baits again. That was back in the 80s for the Ballinasloe matches and one thing, fishing River Suck. So it's it's still there. It's gone. And I hope I can take it with me. I mean, Jed Kent, all he wants is my little black books. Lord knows why. Because it's all written in code. So, you have to take it to Bletchley.
Unlocking the code.
GCHQ. What do you want to do with these? Decipher them. Yeah, they're not in Russian, or Chinese for that matter. Yeah. So, but no, you've got to be light-hearted. I mean, particularly when people call. I mean, Ryan Boyd had called me old boy.
The cheek, the nerve.
Yeah, but he gets away with it. He's a lovely guy.
Catches a few fish, I think.
He does, yes. And he's a bait head, as I call him. He loves his bait. He knows what.
Well respected and a nice guy.
He's what. Yeah.
I think that makes a big difference, doesn't it? You know, approachable. You know, if like you know, if you can help someone, you would. You know, if
there's no point, is there, being selfish? I mean, you know, like I say.
No. I think fishing is very sort of individual. Yeah, it means something to each individual person, and when you see that, and then they're going out like you said, they're getting excited, they're catching fish, they're catching PBs. Doesn't matter what they're fishing for, whether it's roach or perch, chub, bream, carp, whatever, gudgeon. As long as they're enjoying it, I think that's the main thing, isn't it?
If you haven't got that fire in your belly, then
the buzz.
Chuck it all in the bin. Yeah,
fishing's good for the mind. I think certainly helps me. It's good for me.
Yeah, and I think the other thing is that I would like to think that we at Hinders can try to help as much as we can.
100%. It's not just about selling bait. Not for me. I work with a lot of people, especially kids, trying to get a lot of youngsters into the sport. Out the house, away from the consoles.
That's right.
Out on the bank and enjoying that. I do a few more open days, sort of down Flaxlands, our local. A lot of parents bring out the kids that don't know anything about fishing, get them into fishing.
They want an automatic fuse kit in those consoles. So 10 minutes. Oh, yeah, sorry, Mum, you've got to go and buy another console. No, you're not having it. I mean, you do see less kids.
Yeah.
I mean, it's a shame. And I mean, I think there are an awful lot of other reasons other than the console thing.
Yeah.
But, it's everything else that you see. I mean, nature, just the whole, you can't buy that, at all. And as I say, I've been very, very lucky over the years. I've fished some really weird places in the world, and and some of the sights, that I've seen and one thing or another.
I can only imagine.
Yeah.
Scary or?
Oh yeah, I remember being up in the Bally Mountains in the.
Is there something we can actually talk about? Or?
Yeah. No, this is quite. But no, I was up in the Bally Mountains. It's Ethiopia, and we were filming over there. In fact, Bernard Cribbins was there. God rest his soul in peace. Wonderful man. What a character as well. I remember we were brushing our teeth in this lodge with ouzo because we couldn't use water, But we were fishing the Shasta for trout, not indigenous. They were stocked by a Dutch missionary. How the hell he ever got all of these, both brownies and rainbows, up into this river in the middle of in this mountainous area? And we were walking. I mean, it was quite. We had these guys carrying our gear who appeared from nowhere. Remember it vividly, and we'd best go, or I'd best go. Anyway, we were walking around the corner, our fly rods and spent lure rods, and there, literally, you just went round the corner. There's a pack of baboons, and we're going.
Interesting. Not something you see every day.
You see their sort of the fangs. You see them, and you think. And of course, they do like a bit of meat. Not that I had a lot of meat on me in those days, skinny thing. And
you weren't thinking, I said, run, or
we were all saying, "What do we do?"
Look them in the eyes.
Yeah, and these young Ethiopian lads, they were shaking their heads and I'm thinking, does that mean death is imminent, or? And they just they were going shoo, shoo, like this, and I'm thinking, I'm actually, if I'd had a pair of brown trousers on, they would have been full up. As it was, the shorts got quite and so there's sort of mad things like that, and these young kids, they weren't frightened of them at all. We were cacking them, bricking it, really were,
Yeah.
And so I don't even know how we got onto that one, but it's
a fisherman's tale.
Yeah, well, like I say, I could tell you, yeah.
But maybe we do a few episodes on Keith's fishing adventures or something like that, fisherman's tale.
Yeah.
You've probably got a few stories to tell, I
imagine.
Oh,
yeah, close encounters with hippopotamuses and crocodiles. And,
I just normally go to the local commercial, relatively safe, and food delivered to your swim. That's my sort of surroundings. But
well, going back to
a bit more of an adventurer.
Going back to Ethiopia, we were, as I say, we were up in the Bally Mountains. We fished from right down in the southern region, Lake Shamo for the Nile perch and catfish.
Nice.
Where you didn't go on the banks because of crocs.
Okay.
And hippos were a little bit dodgy. They just, you sat in a boat and these, two guys in a boat and your gilly, for want of a better word, who sadly most of them didn't speak a word of English. It was just sort of self-taught business really. And then to the other extreme, up in up in the Bally Mountains, and we were, food was, putting it mildly, was a bit different.
Okay.
So we had a day's trout fishing.
Not your burgers and chips type stuff.
Well, it was burgers with a take, and there were two very quickly, I bet. But we come back. As you get back from a bit of fresh air, although it's really hot and very cold at night. We smelt this. You could smell it in the air, and you're thinking barbecue. Ooh, we've got it right for once. And anyway, these chefs that they'd come up with us from the Hilton in Addis Ababa. There was this goat.
Yeah.
It was on the spit, and they were turning this goat. And as we got closer, you could think, smells big. And what they'd done was they'd literally slaughtered this goat after we'd gone out in the morning, stuck it on this spit, hair the lot.
Oh,
Yeah,
no.
So they're sharpening up their blades, ready to do the carving, and the meat was just, it was nice and bloody.
Nice.
So that, suffice to say, a few people did go down with rather upset stomachs. But the best bet was, at night they used to bring in the chickens into the lodge because of predators.
Yeah.
And every morning the cockerel would be kicking off, and you just think, oh, shut up, will you? Yeah. You wake up waiting for that cockadoodle do, and nothing's happening. What's going on?
It's gone.
It's gone. Yeah, we walk in. I remember it vividly, and it walked into this sort of kitchen area, and there was this whole flock of chickens, and the chefs had gone around and slit everyone's neck. Yeah, suffice to say, that was what we had to eat that night as well. They were cooked properly, but
nice.
Yeah. But anyway, on that note, I'm ranting on about.
We definitely went off a bit there,
But yeah, good times. As I say, I've been lucky, really.
A lifetime in fishing.
It has. I mean, it started. I'm not going to say where it started, but it did. It started on the River Churn in Cirencester, and I lived literally 5 minutes walk.
Yeah.
And that's where it all started, chasing.
I think we're going to do quite a few episodes, like Coffee with Keith, where we'll cover a lot of set subjects, I suppose, and obviously catching up with some of your sort of more adventures and bits like that, and obviously a lot of bait talk.
Not the adventures of the Longfield drinking team and things like that.
Yeah.
No.
We'll cover the bits we can talk about.
Well, it would be nice for people to see that I do have a non-serious side of my life as well.
Absolutely.
And that, so I am a human being.
I can confirm.
Although,
and he's got some stories, so I think we're being for a treat over the season, and we're at least I think we've tried to do 12 episodes.
Yeah,
with a coffee with Keith, a bit more sort of just general chat without too much of an agenda, just free flow.
Yeah, and we can talk. And if people do have things specific they want to talk about or ask or have any questions, and then fine, fire them over to you, and we'll see if we can help them out.
We'll do a few coffees with Keith. We'll do some bait questions, sort of Q&As. We got like the catching up with the community, and obviously as and when the sort of season progresses, we can start looking at areas to spend a little bit more time on, see if we can. Yeah,
and hopefully we're going to get some of the guys who are actively involved with development. We're going to take them in front of a camera and have a chat with them and see what they've got to say and what they do.
Maybe catch a few fish as well.
It'd be good.
Absolutely.
It'd be good. Right, we start catching fishing next week.
Proof's in the pudding, as they say.
Yeah. I'd love to get those really sharp hooks for you, mate. They can go into your skin.
I'm not sure the gudgeon fishing's for me, but I'm not going to turn it down. We'll give it a go. I don't mind. Fishing's fishing.
Yeah.
You'd enjoy it.
Yeah. But anyway, on the closing note, we will, I think, say Happy New Year to you all. I hope you remain safe. Seriously, enjoy whatever you do.
Yeah.
But keep well, remain safe, and if you have families, may they all be blessed in everything for the year ahead, and be lucky.
And we'll see you soon.